really excited to have everybody on our first Friday office hours. So we are just going to have fun and talk about all things horticulture here on this wintry, very wintry day, but we're going to think about spring. I'm Natalie Bumgarner. I'm coming to you from Knoxville.
I'm Celeste Scott. I'm a horticulture agent in Madison County over in the Western region.
Greg Upchurch, UT Extension over in Cumberland County.
Lucas Holman over in Wilson County.
I'm Evangeline James in Bradley County.
Melody Rose up in Greene County.
I'm Mitchell Moak in Rutherford County.
I'm Seth Wiles in Anderson County.
Awesome. So that was a good setup. We're going to call this group our panelists for this session. So now we're going to focus a little more on ornamental plants. And we actually got several questions sent in through the question portal in this area. So we're going to try to address those. And also, Lucas and I had talked ahead of time that obviously this is a good time to mention some things about getting annuals started from seed indoors. So kind of transitioning from starting vegetables over to, what's on a lot of your minds, seed starting for the spring. So Lucas, I'll let you kind of take that away and I'll be here for support.
I think we were talking about, starting things inside. It's good. Most seed packets will roughly tell you the time you need to start a lot of this stuff. And I know we have in our head that everything can be started, the first week of February. Well, that's just not always the case. We have some annuals that need to be directly sown to the garden 100 times. They'll do 10 times better directly sown into the garden as opposed from transplants. I think one reason why a lot of people want to grow transplants is it's stuff that they can't find in the store. So like if I'm growing a variety of tomato called Barry's Crazy Cherry, then I'm going to have to grow it myself because I'll never find it for sale. Some of the newer cultivars of zinnias and impatiens and things, you will not find them in the store. You just need to go buy the seeds and do it yourself. And I think Natalie hit on it a second ago, light is an issue. We have an issue sometimes if it's next to a cold window, those seeds are not going to germinate well. We have cold, moist soil, and then a cold window. We're hitting 25, 30 degrees on some of these nights. It's not going to be successful for some of those. But a lot of people like growing their own seeds because they want to grow some stuff that they just can't find in the store at the regular garden centers. So I think.
So Lucas, I have folks call me all the time at the extension office. They're like, oh, I tried to start these seeds. They came up great, but then they just shot up, got super tall, fell over, and now they're all spindly and I can't do anything about that. And I know what my always first go-to answer is for that, but what would your number one, if someone could change one thing they're doing when they're starting seeds indoors, light, yes.
Buy a light.
Light early, right?
Yes.
Light early, and then keep it really close to the seedling. So if you have it, 4 feet above the seedlings, theoretically, phototropism, the plants are going to grow toward the light. I just made that word up. The plants are going to grow toward the light. So they're going to stretch out more of the lights away from them. So if you want a good, stocky, short seedling, buy some of those really nice grow lights. Now, I don't have any recommendations. We'll have people call and they'll say, what kind of grow lights? And I'll say, well, there's 1,000 kinds on the market. Just pick one, but keep them really close to those seedlings to start that way. And as Dr. Bumgarner was saying earlier, the better on some of those things. We have the stretching out because they'll put it next to a window and then it'll grow toward the window. And then they may turn the cup and then it'll stretch a little bit more. And that's how we kind of get some of these ugly seedlings. I think light is the biggest issue with some of those. Phototropism. I know it's a real word, Seth.
And I would have to say, yes, those, branded grow lights are excellent and can help you with your progress there when you're trying to become a better seed starter. But I'm just going to throw in there, some light is better than no light. I just use a standard 4-foot shop light that has 2 bulbs in it. I try to find the one that's nearest to the natural light spectrum as far as the bulbs go to put in there. And again, some light's better than no light. So don't get caught up in I can't find the right light is what I'm trying to get at.
I have some daylily seeds in a window germinating right now. I don't have any fancy lights for them, so they're actually soaking in a bag of water because that's how I wanted to start some of these. And I forgot about them for 3 weeks. That's why they're growing right now. So.
All right. I think that my internet might have slowed up for a second. Am I blurring out to y'all?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I was thinking while we were talking about this seed grown and the annuals, and I just put the link, Celeste, to the new seed grown annual pub in there. And I don't know if maybe you guys want to mention just for a second about the fact that some of our newer cultivars are available as seed grown, but some of them, because they are vegetatively propagated, you're not going to be able to get. Lucas kind of hit on it, but I thought you might want to clarify.
Yeah. So we have some series of plants. We'll say proven winners, for example. A lot of those are patented. You are not allowed to get seeds from them because they're not going to come true from seed to begin with. And somebody owns the right to that plant. They own it for just, so I think it's 21 years. So like if I'm talking about a new Million Bells variety, now you can grow Caliber Crow and Million Bells from seed. It's a challenge. But a lot of the newer ones, they're patented. And you have to actually buy the plants themselves. So sometimes if you're going to the same garden center every year, well, I can't find this here. I can't find this here. Branch out and go somewhere else. And I know I always recommend hitting 3 or 4 garden centers instead of just going to the same garden center all the time. Well, I can't find this cultivar of this here. Well, go somewhere else.
Good point. Spread the joy, right? So one of my favorite examples of this very thing that we're talking about is Gomphrena Fireworks, which is seed grown. It's super tall. It's an airy plant. It kind of mixes in with things in annual and perennial borders. It's beautiful. But there's a newer cultivar called Truffula Pink that's more compact, and people will buy the seed for Firework and be sad that it's not Truffula because Truffula is vegetatively propagated. Its main characteristic that it touts over its older brother or sister is that it is compact, but you cannot save the seed from that and expect to get the same plant. So definitely a good thing to touch on. So we got a lot of questions about pruning, different kinds of pruning in the question portal. So I feel like it's important to take a moment to mention a few of these. So I'm going to field the first one. We had a question on pruning lavender. When should you prune it? And the answer is not now. Do not go out there and try to prune your lavender now. So the thing with lavender is that you don't want to prune into any of the woody structure. You know, the older growth displays some secondary growth characteristics and actually gets woody. So you definitely don't want to cut into that because you don't have dormant or latent buds in that harder wood. So when pruning, ideally, let's start with a clean slate. Say that you plant a lavender this spring, it grows, it blooms. Most of the time people harvest those blooms. I mean, I leave them in the garden sometimes, but you're usually harvesting those to use them inside for different crafts, you know, floral stuff, potpourris, etc. So you're harvesting that first flush. It'll put out another flush of growth, and you can prune again in like mid-August, okay? And you wanna dome that plant up, cut back maybe 2 inches above where your last flush was. You'll be able to tell. I know it seems strange now. You're like, I don't understand what you're saying, but just get into the season and go out there and you'll understand what I'm saying. You want to cut about 2 inches above where your last soft growth happened, okay? If it's too late for all that and the plant's been in the ground 2 or 3 years already, I have some like this, and you already have woody growth, you want to only prune back about 2 inches from where that woody growth stops. Does that make sense? So start at the base, follow your woody growth. When it becomes herbaceous again, go up 2 or 3 more inches, and that's where you need to start creating your dome. So a little tricky there, but pruning in mid-season after its first bloom and again in mid-August is really all you need, okay? So I'm going to throw this one to you, Lucas, just so it's not me talking a lot. Pruning limelight hydrangeas. When?
So limelight hydrangeas are a paniculata, hydrangea paniculata, which means it blooms on new wood. So a lot of the older ones that we'll see blooming on a homestead, the blue ones, Nico Blue, Red Maja, and some of those, they normally will form their flower buds in the fall. So you don't prune them until after they bloom. But limelight, you actually prune them in about the next month. So we're going to see all the new growth come out. If you prune them in the next month, you're not going to be cutting off new blooms because they develop their buds in the springtime. So you can prune them middle of March.
And you don't have to prune any of them. If their size isn't intrusive and, they're growing normally and you like the size they are, don't think that you have to go out and prune anything.
Yeah.
It's not like a requirement.
And I think some people have that mentality. Well, I've got to prune everything. And I can show you some very bad pruning jobs on southern magnolias. And they just had the mindset, I've got this tree, it requires responsibility. I need to prune it. And I don't know how to get that mindset out of some people. They just feel like they've always got to prune something. If the tree's really in the right spot, you really probably should never prune it. But
there's power in the pruners. pull those pruners out and you get just filled with that power. But okay, let's see, what else did we have? Had a question here. This is kind of a pruning question, but more just like general bed maintenance about cleaning out their perennial beds, like the foliage that was stems maybe that they had left over from last year, just to serve as a habitat for different insects throughout the winter and things like that, and birds even who might be feeding on those seeds. And I'd say still leave it. I mean, because if that's why you left it to start with, because those insects and animals are still using those eco services that are being provided by that cover right now. But if you just can't stand it, you don't care about providing habitat, then I'd say, yeah, you could go ahead and clean that stuff out if you like. But again, it's not necessary. Okay. On a side note, we always encourage you to clean out foliage of plants that have been displaying like disease symptoms the previous year. So that is a circumstance where we would not encourage you to leave that standing over the fall or winter months. But as long as it was healthy plant material, you're good to go. Had another question on here about crepe myrtle bark scale, and we'll actually address this again in more detail the next time we get together, because we'll kind of be in the season for treating. But they were asking, what is the best time to treat? What should we use? And short answer is May, June. You want to wait until we start seeing new growth flushing out on those plants before you treat with the systemic insecticide. Because it is taken up through the roots and translocated to other parts of the plants. And so you want the plant to be actively growing. And right now they're dormant. So if you feel like you have a very heavy infestation of crepe myrtle bark scale, there are alternatives for dormant treatment. And that would be through the use of dormant oils. And I have a website that I will post on here that is full of videos, instructional worksheets, and brochures, information that's been put together by UT Extension and UT Research folks for you to use. But we'll go into that in more detail next session. Now, Lucas or whoever else, any of our other panelists on here can field this question. We had this come in through the question portal, and the lady also sent some pictures to Natalie of some lichen on a youngish dogwood tree. And I'm telling you, this is like, if I had the picture, I wish I could share it with y'all. It's like crazy on steroids lichen, right? It's like the kind that's real fluffy, and it is all over her dogwood, and she's worried about it. And so I'm going to pass this one on to the next person again, so we can get someone else speaking. What are your thoughts on lichen? My thoughts are it's not hurting the tree, but there are some other reasons why it could be there, right?
Yeah, Celeste, that's the one thing that I tell homeowners. The lichen's not killing the tree, but if you've got lichens to that level growing on that tree's probably under stress, staying wetter. There's an environment going on that's more conducive for that lichen growth. And so I would say environmentally, there's some stressor going on there, and the lichens are just a sign of that environmental stressor.
Good point. And I do want to point out also that lichen are not parasitic to the plants that they're growing on. I mean, they can grow on things that aren't even alive, rocks, fence posts, etc. So they're not parasitic, but they are opportunistic. So if the environment is conducive to their development, they're essentially just using that tree bark as a place to hang on, and proliferate. So again, I wouldn't worry that the lichen is causing tree decline. We need to look further into that and see if there are some underlying environmental things that could be causing that. So good questions coming in this morning. And then one other question I wanted to address that came in through the portal that was kind of ornamental hort related was, if you are using pine needle or wheat straw as mulch, should you remove that before you start planting things? And in their thought process, they put on there, because they break down so slowly. And I'm going to say, I like using them as mulch because they break down so slowly, because that means I don't have to remulch again. I feel like if I'm using hardwood mulch, sometimes it can look like I need to put mulch on, every other couple of years, which in some cases is fine, because as those organic mulches break down, what are they doing to our soil? They're adding in more organic material. They're just helping to create structure in our soils. And that's always a good thing. But our main reason for using mulches is usually to prevent weed germination, to block out light. So for those reasons, I like pine needles and wheat straw, because they do break down so slowly. So I'd say no, you can just pull you back a little spot, plant you a plant, and pull that mulch right back up to it. That wraps things up for us today. I've had a great time. I think this is a really great first session, and I hope that you all keep going to uthort.com and using those resources and submitting questions into the question portal. And finally, sharing this awesome program with your friends. This is open, and we want everyone in the public who's interested in horticulture to be able to have opportunity to hop on and join us in these. We are going to post the recordings on our UT Hort Facebook page here in the near future, and we are going to get a document out to everybody who attended today.
We're going to try to be podcast cool. We're going to try to come up with like a show notes that has the link.
Yes, show notes. So that's going to be a fun thing. So don't worry if there were links in the chat that you didn't get to. We're going to supply those to you.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us and trying this new format. We've had fun, and we'll see y'all before too long. Happy gardening.